You have 5 minutes.
Quite far. By way of brief introduction, my name's Ben. I'm a student down the road. I study law and economics. The investment fund, in my mind, council owns two types of capital investment. It owns things that it needs for a community purpose, and it owns things that it needs for a income generating purpose. The things that we own for a community purpose, they kind of need to be in Wellington. A community centre in Auckland isn't much use to this council. When we have things that we own for the purpose of generating an income, we should try and own it outside of Wellington. To my mind, we should do that for two reasons. One, it provides a counter-cyclical stabiliser. Most of the things that this council can do to generate revenue rely on Wellington having a thriving economy. Our economy is not great at the moment, and we are very at risk of central government decisions when it comes to the survivability of our economy. So we should look to own financial assets outside of Wellington. We should also try and do that because, as you are, I'm sure, all aware, Wellington's a little bit shaky. It makes good sense to own our assets elsewhere just for a risk issue. If you think that the airport shares provide a community benefit, that is, you think that they provide something more than just the return, they provide us an ability to engage constructively with the airport in a way that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise, it makes sense to keep those shares. I don't think there is a reasonable argument that you can make that land leases provide that. They are purely a financial asset. We own them so that we can generate revenue. They don't need to be in Wellington to serve that purpose. We should hold them elsewhere. Additionally, we have a wonderful tool to capture land rents. It's called land value rating. Airbnb rating, or commercial rating for short-term accommodation suppliers. In my submission, I slightly misunderstood this question because I didn't read it very carefully. I learnt that I misunderstood it thanks to some excellent social media content by Councillor McNulty that came out the day after I did my submission. So thank you for that. I think the principle I identify is still relevant. When council decides to implement a commercial rating differential, it should be concerned with its role as an employment and economic centre in the region. I don't think the argument that we should be concerned with the marginal decisions around how people choose to use their land is particularly convincing. If you think that short-term rental accommodation imposes a higher imposition of financial burden on the council, it makes sense to cover them under the commercial ratings differential. You guys can make that decision. I have no particularly strong thoughts on it. Fee structure changes. User charging for urban land is good. It's good when you do it for parklets. It's good when you do it for motorcycle parking. It's good when you decide urban land is incredibly scarce. You should try and manage it appropriately. Price signals are a really good way of doing that, using price signals as a baseline and then making political decisions to change after that is, to my mind, good. So things like parklets, charging more appropriately for the land they use, good stuff. Kori Event Center, briefly, if you have someone who's willing to take it off your hands and is a community-based organisation, donate it to them. If you don't have anyone, sell it. I don't think that gifting something to council should entitle you to bind council's funding decisions. If the community decide that they can create a community trust that is willing to undertake this work themselves, donate the community trust, donate the community centre to them. Begonia House. I understand that this long-term plan amendment has kind of been done on the hoof, and I am sympathetic to that. So I understand that the first thing you're going to cut is any unallocated spending because that's the easiest stuff to cut out. Doing that fundamentally reduces the ability of choice for people who are not incumbent residents. Doing that means that we are making people who, for whatever reason, do not actively engage in council at the moment, less able to make decisions about how they allocate funding later. That, to my mind, is fundamentally a conservative point of view. I understand the need to cut unallocated spend out because it's easy to introduce spend now in light of that based on underlying community expectations at the moment, to me, is fundamentally conservative. You can't make a strong progressive argument for it. There's a wonderful quote I like from Alain Berthaud, which is that in managing a city, there is nothing more damaging than assuming static conditions. Cities change. It is what makes them great. I haven't left much time for questions. I apologize.
We're literally out of time, Ben, so thank you. I'll Papawai, Porter Samuels from the Taputanga Trust and friends. You can sit as well as stand. You can sit at the table if you like. Yep. Either way. Yep. Yep. And if you press the microphone button and it'll go green. Glenda knows how to use it.
Oh, okay, extra green.
Sorry.
And as an organisation, you get 10 minutes.
Ka pai. And that's on the screen?
I can see.
Yeah, there is a presentation, a slideshow.
Oh, there we go.
Ka pai. Korite. Rawe, tēnā tātou e te whare, ka tika me mehi ki te haukainga o te whenua nei, e pupuri ana I te mana o te whenua, e mehi ana ki a koe kārepa. O tira koutou, ngā mema o te kaunihira kua whai wā, ki te whakarongo mai ki e nei kōrero. Ko wai ahau, ko parihine taisani asi toku ingoa, kai ko nei ahau hei māngai mo toku hapu, kai ko nei hoki ahau hei tiamana mo te puari o Taputanga Marae. Ko Glenda Hughes tēnei, I whakauru mai a Glenda ki tā mātou puari nā te kaunihira nei. So Glenda Hughes is our Mayor's Office appointment. Ko Papawai Porter Samuels tēnei, ko Matai Stewart tēnei, he uri te tokorua nei nā te pāpā, nā te kraua ko Bruce Stewart, I whakauru mai nā te hapu o Taputanga. So thank you all for hearing our submission. We would love to start with a brief history of who and what we represent. So we are from Taputanga Marae, and Taputanga Marae is located in Island Bay on the south coast of Wellington, for those who have not been there. And it was a direct result of the urban drift of the early 70s. So my papa happened to be in Wellington City during that time, and Wellington was in a bit of a tough place, and there was, of course, the rise of gangs, and there was a lot sitting heavy on the shoulders of the then Mayor, Sir Michael Fowler, and so he reached out for help. And with his support and with the support of his council, we built Taputanga Marae in Island Bay. In the last 45 years, we have housed many. We have housed our local community, the wider New Zealand Indigenous whānau from all over the world, who have come to see the beauty, the architecture, and the cultural space that we held in Island Bay and in Wellington City. We also provided trades training, emergency housing, emergency evacuation for our local community, as well as being a living, breathing marae. So we had a papakainga, and there were lots of us who lived there and currently still do live there. If you look behind us, that is our behind you, sorry, that is our marae. It was the world's largest and tallest wooden house on wooden piles made out of recycled materials. Some called us the world's largest shanty, some called us the Māori Hogwarts. But what we were was a statement, and we were proud of it. the walls of our whare held the hopes and dreams of many young rangatahi, hundreds of young rangatahi Māori. Because we really, from the get-go in the last 45 years, we have truly embodied true rehabilitation, and especially in a time where it was really needed. And so from our whare, kei ma whakatauki, and it goes like this: nā te ringa tangata I hanga I te whare, nā te tuara o te whare I whakatipu I te tangata. So those who build the house are built by the house. Thank you.
So behind us is what we can see, the structure that was built with the many hands that came to the marae, many of them who were displaced. It just shows how when we work together we can build something beautiful. And amongst that structure, they did make, using recycled materials, they had 2 open kitchens, 2 adjoined dining rooms, 7 wharenui, including 3 tupuna whare. And 5 wharenui. And what's interesting is because of that relationship that Bruce Stewart had with Michael Fowler, the mayor at the time, the first whare on site was actually named after Michael Fowler. It was Tane Whaiora. So that just highlights that relationship that we had in the beginning, and we are seeking to get back to that point where it's a working relationship. Sadly, of course, there was a fire that happened on 2019, and it did take away most of that whare, but the parts that people don't see in amongst that whare is the fact that there were 5 single rooms, 4 self-contained units, and 3 three-bedroom homes. So it wasn't just a wharenui like the traditional marae that people are used to going to see, but it was also a place of accommodation. So those who were homeless or displaced, they came there and they found a home, and they were the lifeline of that marae that kept it flowing each day.
Kia ora tātou. I guess that makes me the son of the Māori Dumbledore. Please don't panic if you've been working in this industry for a while. I look like my father, but we're going down a different route. In fact, me and my sister took a photo with the closest thing to a consent that Taputiranga's had over his grave just to show that we're changing. In that sense, we've been working hard to follow the rules, make sure that we're doing things tika with both council and building consents as we're moving forward. We're currently working through our consent process to begin the earthworks or the enabling works for the Papakainga, which is the housing part of it. In conjunction, we've also got a separate part that's working through the rebuild of the wharenui itself on the marae whenua. So our biggest hold-up that we have at the moment is working through the septic system that currently runs through, you can see in the picture in front of you or on the wall, that it connects up to the houses at the top of Ryan Street, and as well as ties in a few locations along that road. So in my normal Monday to Friday job, I work as a construction manager, and we estimate the cost for this to be around about $250,000. This is currently a council-owned asset that is fed from other properties. And when we first applied for resource consent, there was a lot more funding available for these developments through MHUD and TPK. Those have since been removed and they're no longer available. That being said, we very much like to be able to progress, and I guess we're asking for this asset to be recognised as a council asset, to look at how we can get that put through and prioritised in your upcoming program. Through the enabling work that we're going to be doing, once we have the consent, we'll be able to minimise that cost through the earthworks that we're doing and working in with that. But it's currently earthenware septic systems at the top end of its life expectancy. It's still currently functional, but as most of you will know, earthenware is essentially just pottery that's sitting in the ground and is not far off from failing at any given point. I don't want to take up too much time, so that's just.
Okay. I think the one thing that Matai sort of needed to emphasise is that it is a council asset that we're asking to actually be fixed, and it's going to break down anyway because it's in really bad condition. The main reason I am here is because, yes, I am the Wellington City Council mayoral appointment for the Taputanga Trust and have been for the last 6 years. And what I would just like to, and I think after the presentation I probably don't even need to say what I was intending to say, which is these people are really working to get everything right. They're really working to make sure there are no issues. It is true, the very first resource consent they got, they waved over their father's grave because he was slightly different in his approach to actual building and homes. And I was around many years ago with Taputanga when we were having trouble with the homeless and we were having trouble with the gangs, and it was a place which was of huge support to me as a police officer in Wellington to actually look after these people. So that's my main reason for being here. Thank you.
Any pārtai?
We've got one question from Councillor O'Neill.
Kia ora mai tātou. What can council do to help enable your marae, your project? What extra support can we lend?
So I guess in the first situation would be to review our resource consent, which is currently hinged on the building of a new sewer line running through, the new septic system running through the system. And if the council can look at or do a feasibility study around what that would look like if council was to pay for that council asset being reinstated.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. We've got no further questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up we have John Clemenco, who has 5 minutes to talk about water.
Greetings. I'm addressing you in support of my submission on the local water well done option 2 Wellington City Council sole ownership water organisation. I'm a chartered professional engineer, having in excess of 55 years experience in the civil, structural engineering, including the management and delivery of 3 waters. I hold professional qualifications in civil engineering and management. Public record shows that there are problems within Wellington Water on not only reporting but also providing value for money, and beyond this I do not propose to make any further comment. The current operational structure, where there is a committee of council elected representatives requesting that the board undertake works in their area, has a fundamental weakness identified by Hugh Rennie. Namely, some of the members are often short tenure, further compounding the issue of institutional memory loss. The absence of engineers in each of the client council organisations does not provide any assurance to ratepayers as to effective oversight from their elected representatives, as many do not know the questions to be asked at those meetings. Therefore, in my professional opinion, Wellington Water was doomed for failure, as it is unable to meet the fundamental requirements needed. Is it possible to recover from this position? Regretfully, in my professional opinion, no. It's too late. I believe that in order to provide the best for ratepayers, there is a need for Wellington City Council to have sole ownership of the water organisation. And when I say the water organisation, I'm talking about the 3 waters, not 1. A new division under the control of a chartered professional engineer with responsibility for the administration and management of the 3 waters assets should be formed. The division would include limited design, contract management and administration, and monitoring of construction, and most importantly, updating the asset management plans. Where more expertise is required, external consultants could provide that service. This divisional manager should be solely responsible to the CEO, with indirect links to other divisions of council where necessary. Reports for OPEX funding and expenditure should be submitted monthly, with CAPEX funding to be sought under annual plan provisions, with full explanations included. Funding will be totally transparent and thus minimise adverse effects. Service delivery works would be subject to competitive pricing to get the best value for money. It's also important to note that the division would not be subject to additional cost to council, as it would be funded from rates through water charges directly. Finally, the reinstatement of depreciation funding would overcome part of the need for large funding, and if ring-fenced, then over a period of time, perhaps reduce the need for borrowings. Thank you.
We have one question, John, from Councillor Pennant.
Thank you. That was incredibly helpful. I'm just wondering what you would say to people who'd say that water doesn't respect territorial boundaries, given that Wellington doesn't control supply.
You're talking about the bulk funding of water or bulk supply from the regional council?
Yeah. Just that we don't have the supply in Wellington city boundaries.
No city has an internal supply that I'm aware of.
Here.
No. Wellington would be dependent on the regional council, and I won't make further comment about them, to provide you with the bulk water from the Kaitoki supply system, I think, and I think is the second inland catchment. No real problem. It hasn't been a problem previously. Why would it be a problem now?
All right, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Now we have Rhonda Fitzpatrick, who will talk for 10 minutes on the general LTP and water.
My slide up? Oh, thank you. You mind flicking through them for me? I've only got to go through 3. That's all right. Okay. Good afternoon. The amended LTP annual plan and local water done well should be rejected, as the forecasted spend is excessive and exceeds the financial capability of many Wellington ratepayers, renters and businesses to pay them. Additionally, these documents fail to make it clear what the back pocket impact to the average ratepayer will be. Use of percentages, vague graphs and optimistically low future rate increases hide the truth that this council is spending far beyond its income and amassing a large amount of debt. With a lot of effort, I have created the table that you see up there, which shows that the forecasted rates and water bills would be in 10 years' time across 3 scenarios. So the first one I have there is a modest home. Their rates would go from $3,700 in 10 years' time to $8,700. An average home, which is now paying $5,800, will go to $13,200. And if you have a high-end home, you're probably paying around $13,000 now. That could go to $29,000 a year. Moving on to the next slide, where I've spent a little bit of time just on a modest home. So in a modest home, maybe you have a retired person whose sole income is New Zealand super. Currently, they will be getting $28,000 annually, and they'll be paying they'll be paying taxes of $3,800, and yet their rates are $3,700 already. In another 10 years, assuming the government super increases 3% annually, their super will now go to $36,500 and they will pay $5,300 in government taxes. But the combined rates and water bill will now have ballooned to $8,700. That is $3,400 more than they're paying in government taxes. So council is going to be taking more money off its residents than the government does. These high rates also have a big impact on those with a mortgage, as it's like having an increase in your interest rate of 1.5% or more. And for those trying to get a home loan, it reduces how much they can loan. And that means that they must save for longer. This pushes home ownership further out of the reach of first home buyers. High interest rates also will push up rates by $100 to $150 per week just to cover the rate rises. This will cause hardship to low-wage earners, students and those on a fixed income. Councils can stop this from happening if they refocus back to the core essential services, those services that cannot or will not be provided by government nor by private business. The problem is spending on non-essentials. It is not a lack of income. Moving on to the long-term plan, I did do an extensive written, so I won't go over everything. I'm just going to pull out a couple of things. The one I'm going to pull out on the long-term plan is the insurance and investment. I don't like any of the three options that have been proposed, but I do agree we must reduce our debt ceiling down to 200%, and I believe we should be doing that by making major cuts in unnecessary spending, not on our small community assets. Additionally, once we have built that investment fund, we should protect it by requiring a binding citizen referendum around that, except in the case of a major natural disaster. And that binding referendum around that is to make sure that future councils don't fritter it away on unnecessary things. It's put aside for a reason, we keep it for that reason. Begonia House must be kept and the minimum maintenance done to ensure it stays open. I would like you to challenge the estimates that you have received for the work on that, because then the estimates that you've provided all have around 25% contingency fee, and remember this is an estimate, not even quotes, and that's 25% on the design. I mean, this is a refit of a single level glass house. Why have we got 25% on design? I mean, maybe we haven't got the right people doing the work. Maybe we bring in some other people that have more experience with this kind of work. The bike network. I believe we should stop the bike network right now. Apparently we could save 67 million right there, which is actually quite likely more than what we'll get on selling our ground leases. And remember, ground leases actually give us a return annually. Other capital program proposals, well, there's at least another 400 mil that we could save there. I'm only going to touch on a couple. Friends Kicks Park, I believe that should stay as an open area venue, and we should keep the car park underneath it. At least it generates revenue for us. On the Civic Square, I think we should halt all work on that, and instead let's hold proper and meaningful consultation with our ratepayers on what are the options for upgrade or redevelopment of this area, and decide whether or not they're even needed. And as for the City to Sea Bridge, it is not an earthquake-prone building. It is a single-level footbridge. It does not need to be demolished. Moving on to the annual plan, I strongly oppose what you've got in the annual plan because, again, you have increases in there that exceed inflation. So please re-examine the LTP and do better. I live within a budget, and I do expect council to do the same. The Matai Moana Reserve, I support option 2, which is no joint management. Let's avoid spending $750,000 plus a year on that. This is a central government responsibility. We really don't have the money to spend on it. Moving on to local water done well. There are some important details here that should be addressed. Firstly, Wellington's population is not growing. It is shrinking or at best stagnant. Storm events are neither more frequent nor more devastating. Ratepayers have not underfunded water infrastructure, but money earmarked for water has likely been used to cross-subsidise other council activities. What I would like to know is what are the items that will cause the price of water services to triple in the next 10 years? Is it more reservoirs that are being built? Is it the cost of water meters? The cost of replacing old pipes? Badly negotiated contracts? Bloated bureaucracy and co-governance payments, or something else? Detail provided so far for the impact of splitting water and sewage out from our rates is sparse, to say the least. What has been provided in the consultation document shows that my water and sewage charges will go from $1,800 to $6,000 in just 10 years. And others that are currently paying $3,000, they'll see them jump to $12,000. These figures are extremely high and will be unaffordable for many. There should be far more information provided on what we are getting for our money. However, we must go forward. So currently, with the appalling state of Wellington's water and sewage infrastructure, the only option I see is to take it in-house and try to sort it out. To attempt to merge it with other entities at this stage will just result in their issues being added to ours and a much larger mess. So I currently support option 2 as the preferred option. If we get it sorted out, maybe we can then do something different later. In conclusion, and I'll just bring up the next one. In conclusion, Wellington City Council need to urgently and drastically cut all non-core and non-essential services. Wellington City Council spending must be reduced by at least $1 billion as soon as possible. In my written submission, I provided an appendix that has over $2 billion in savings and reduced costs that could be made in non-essential and non-core services. Wellington City Council must rein in its spending, and I'm just going to finish with a little clip up there, a Japanese legend that says, if you get on the wrong train, get off at the nearest station. The longer it takes you to get off, the more expensive the return trip will be. And I think we could learn a little bit from that. We're going in the wrong direction, guys. Let's put the handbrake on, let's reassess and try and get it back on track. Thank you for your time.
Councillor Brown has a question, so we can hand over to him for
just a very quick question. Thanks very much for your numbers about the rates calculations. Were they exclusive of Greater Wellington Regional Council rates, and did they include GST?
I can't tell if they include GST. They did include Greater Wellington, but I did not make an allowance for any increase going forward over the 10 years, so I've just kept the Greater Council ones at what they are today, and then just applied it for 10 years, partly because I didn't know what their forecast was for 10 years.
But it does include GST? Are you not too sure?
I took it off the bills, so no, yes, it would include GST because that's what we get on our bills, so yeah,
okay.
It does.
Great, thanks very much, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the numbers.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Rebecca Shepherd. Who has 10 minutes to talk on general LTP and water.
Kia ora. My name's Rebecca Shepherd, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I've been a Wellingtonian for 30-odd years. Moved here from the South Island once I finished 6 years at University of Otago. When I came to Wellington, we were known as the best little capital of the world. A name that we maintained for quite a few years, actually. But what are we known for now? I'd like you all to think about that. But coming back to today and my submission regarding the 10-year plan and the waterworks, I'd like us to take a check on reality. Our city population is shrinking. The elderly are selling their homes or taking reverse mortgages and moving to cheaper areas. They can't divide the dollar anymore. The young are moving. As soon as they finish school or university or polytech or whatever, they are leaving Wellington to go where it's cheaper to live and where they get a better life. And families are also moving north to Auckland and south. In the plan, this is what sparked me to actually think about writing a submission to you all. And part of this was because a young lady I know was very, very distressed about the possibility of the Begonia House being torn down. She's 18 years old and has just finished school at Wellington Girls. And that got me thinking, what does our city have to attract people to it? What resources do we have that everybody gets to enjoy? Particularly one that's free. And the answer is our gardens. They link to the city and the town through the cable car, and the Begonia House is a treasured and much loved resource. It is also at the back of the Lady Norwood Rose Garden, and which attracts thousands of Wellingtonians and visitors each year. So I urge you all in the district plan to actually pay to have this properly restored, and I think the funding is sorry, I can't find it, but it's indeed, yes, 12 to 18, thank you. Moving on. A couple of other things that I've also noticed throughout Wellington in the past, particularly 5 years. I moved house 5 years ago. My rates were $2,500. They're now $5,980. I have a fixed income. I'm a solo mother. Where am I supposed to get that extra money from? Well, we live within a budget and therefore we make cuts to what we can do, and I urge you as a council to do likewise. This is not our economy, not just in Wellington but nationwide, is finding it tough. So please do not increase our rates anymore. You need to look carefully at the 10-year annual plan and make cuts wherever you can so that people in Wellington can afford to stay here. Do we want our city shrinking anymore? I think not. Another matter is the parklets. What an odd introduction to our city these have been. They just really turn into weed beds and places for people to stay the night, you know, young or old if they're drunk or whatever, or worse yet, toilets. And yet they are taking up valuable parking spaces in our cities. Please, remove them and get some parking back where they were originally. I'd now I'd now like to talk about the water. Our population is shrinking, but I think we need to have a common sense approach to the water. And in this matter, I agree with the council proposal. Our water comes from the Rimatakas and the sewerage goes out via South Wellington and Pororoa. And therefore, all 5 councils do need to work together to sort out our pipes. We need to work with the regional council, Pororoa, Upper Hutt, Lower Hutt, and us. That way we can pool our resources and have a separate entity that manages where our water comes from and where it goes out. If what I've looked at in the long-term plan, this is the best way going forward that will save us the most money. But some more information is really needed about this. I would like a common sense approach to be taken to the long-term plan and the 1-year amendment. So please take a look at everything, line by line. What do we really need? Councils are here to sort out water, rubbish, parks and recreation, and safety of a city. That's another area where I am concerned. Courtney Place has become quite a scary place to go. Why is this? Also, the smell outside the magnificent facility, the St James, is absolutely a disgrace to this council. We have visitors coming here from all over New Zealand. They go into that theatre and they come out and they are faced with pungent smells of urine. It is not on. I would now like to open for questions. Thank you.
Councillor McNulty has a question.
Kia ora, Rebecca. Thank you for coming in today. I just wanted to sort of, not challenge, just to understand your thinking on the parklets a little bit. It's fair to say this council's not perhaps the most well regarded from the business community. So those parklets have been a response directly to hospitality businesses that have seen a benefit in them. At the same time, you've said that there is a disbenefit for the ratepayer in terms of lost parking. So do you think there is one that takes precedent over the other?
Indeed, exactly what you said. I think we do need some more parking back in our city. It is not reasonable to expect that everyone will take the bus. Our ageing population needs car parks, and we need to have access to services in our city, and it's not always practicable to use public transport. So yes, wherever possible, please remove them. Anyone else?
Councillor Chung.
Great, thanks for coming in, Rebecca. I'd like to also ask you about the parklets. Do you think that there are any benefits to the parklets for increasing the business and the the ability for residents to actually come in and sit in those places if the weather's nice, and to actually increase the businesses, the businesses that are actually paying for those?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Chung. I actually think you've got to be realistic. The weather in Wellington, statistically, there's 180 days of rain and more of wind. I don't think they actually get used enough to warrant them being there. There might be some exceptions, perhaps in Courtney Place, where there is wider space, but in areas like the terrace, just not cool, and I've actually very rarely ever seen anyone use them.
Yeah, just to follow up to the parklets. So these are businesses that have applied and asked for the parklets to be there, and they've fed back to us that it has increased foot traffic into their residence and is good for their business. Are you telling them that they're wrong?
No, I clearly haven't been made aware of that information. Thank you, Mayor.
We have no further questions, but thank you very much, and thank you for stimulating the parklet discussion. Judy Roloff has 10 minutes to talk about the general LTP and water. You can sit or you can stand, either way. And until you're ready, we will not start the clock.
Okay, thanks. Our airport shares, along with our ground leases, are revenue gathering and about the only assets that truly provide an ongoing income. To sell them would be very short-sighted for only short-term gain, and yet the council voted last week to sell 9 ground leases before this consultation, which includes the sale of ground leases, has even finished. Passing our community housing portfolio back to central government where it belongs is the only financially prudent option. I understand council received government funding some years ago for its social housing. If that's why council wants to retain it, then don't sell it, just give it back to them and we'd still save millions. We cannot afford to continue investing in social housing, a central government role, one for which ratepayers are currently paying in their taxes and also in their rates, a form of double dipping. Have the social housing costings been subject to rigorous independent audit? Even if we gave our social housing back to central government for no cost whatsoever, we'd still save the money the council intends spending on these units over the course of the next 10 years, go a long way towards reducing our insurance risk, along with our debt headroom, save the cost of the contract to manage the social housing, which also begs the question, if the contracted management is doing their job, why has the housing got to such a state that it needs so much work doing on it? It's irresponsible of council to continue with its social housing when there is a surplus of rentals on the market and when council has incurred so much debt already. At the rate council is increasing rates every year, the current homeowners will be the ones in need of social housing in the future. Why is the council so hell-bent on retaining its social housing portfolio when so many other councils have opted out? At the very least, pause and leave such costly decisions for the incoming council in October. Whoops. Yeah. Or has council already let the contracts? Is it another case of the tail being the council officers, wagging the dog but being the elected councillors? The Begonia House is an icon of Wellington, gifted to council by the Norwood family, that people come from all over the world to see. Council accepted that gift, so has a moral, if not legal, obligation to maintain it to the standard required. The fact that successive councils have partially neglected this does not negate that obligation. The building is a huge glass house housing many exotic plants that would not survive elsewhere. The issue is the Begonia House itself, not staff changing areas, kitchens and toilets, which should be provided as part of the Greater Botanical Gardens, not used to bolster the cost of remedial work on the Begonia House. And an events area is certainly not part of the Begonia House or its purpose. The Kori Event Center was built by a trust with community-raised funds and gifted to council at council's request, solely on the understanding that the council would fund the fit-out and open the centre. That it sat all these years with nothing being done while costs spiralled is council's fault, not the Kori communities. That council has failed in this obligation does not negate that obligation in terms of the legally binding agreements signed at the time. If the building is now found to have watertight issues, these are between council officers who signed the building off at the time and the architect and builder. Why did these issues not show up at the time? Why has council not referred them back to the architect and builder instead of raising them in a report dated July 2024? There's also the issue of the money from the recent sales of the St John's corner vacant lot, which was to be set aside towards the cost of completing the fit-out. I asked Whaara Lagoima if council received any actual monetary payment for this site. If yes, how much did it receive and what's happened to that money? If no, why not? My request was refused, so I've complained to the Ombudsman. I also requested but did not receive copies of any and all documentation, including letters, emails, notes, advice from council officers to officers, to councillors, including information as to when and why council officers and subsequently councillors decided council should not honour its commitment to fund, finish and open the Kori Event Center. I received a copy of one email to the 3 councillors of our ward, plus links to 3 council meetings, not what I requested. Why would council officers refuse to provide all the information requested unless they're trying to hide something? Have costings for these 2 projects been subjected to stringent analysis and an independent audit report? The event centre was meant to be a community hub, despite being one of the largest suburbs in the country. Kōrau lacks public spaces, having lost 10 halls in the past 2 decades. A community fundraising effort got the building shell completed on time and under budget. yet it's sat empty and unused since 2019. Now council wants to demolish and or sell it, citing weather tightness concerns and a $3.2 million mediation cost. However, Neville Parker, a designer and building practitioner, says the building doesn't have the typical leaky building red flags, and he can't see why the council would want to knock it down on the basis of any perceived cost blowout to complete it. More than 1,600 submissions supporting the centre were made by schools, churches, clubs, businesses and individuals. There are things our community would love to do in Kōrau, but can't. To Ngākau Civic Square precinct, I strongly oppose the demolition of the Michael Fowler Centre, an iconic building. As anyone who has been to a New Zealand Symphony Orchestra concert, university graduation or other event there knows, it met earthquake standards when it was built, so why doesn't it now? I strongly oppose the demolition of the City to Sea Bridge, not even mentioned in the proposals, possibly due to the High Court hearing last week. Numerous engineering reports state it's not an earthquake risk. It should not be demolished in favour of yet another pedestrian crossing designed to further disrupt traffic along this route. What is it with council officers and their scorched earth policy when it comes to iconic structures in Wellington? Why are ratepayers expected to fund the $44 million Frank Kitts Park redevelopment when council won't spend money to complete the Kori Event Center, project fully funded to date by its local community? I understood the Chinese community had originally agreed to fund the Chinese garden, and the dragon boating community has managed to find to date without a multi-million-dollar facility. I strongly oppose council involvement in the Matai Moana Reserve on Marama Peninsula, a cost council doesn't need to incur. It's Crown-owned land, part of the Taranaki Whanui Treaty of Waitangi settlement. Let the Crown and Taranaki Whanui continue discussions on the future of the land without council input or funding. I strongly oppose the Golden Mile and all associated work. It's unnecessary and opposed by ratepayers and businesses alike. Going forward, Wellington needs money directed into its water facilities and community needs, not a beautification project that will cause serious disruption to businesses and to commuter travel times. This council has borrowed money like there's no tomorrow, relying on ratepayers to pick up the tab. Ratepayers have paid all they can afford. There is no more golden payday. Wellington City Council needs to take a hard look at what is essential spending, forget everything else for now, and avoid any further spending commitments until after the October elections, when a new incoming council to make the decisions. Multi-council-owned water organisation is what we currently have, and it's a shambles. The mayors cannot agree on anything. Bringing it all in-house will avoid this in the future. In addition, the corruption and lack of oversight and control by Wellington Water has got us into the financial and pipes mess that we're in now. It's time to call a halt and bring it all back in-house as it used to be. I strongly support option 2, a Wellington City Council sole ownership water organisation, with stormwater and wastewater all remaining under the direct control of Wellington City Council and funded through rates. Wellington City Council is better placed to deliver outcomes that protect our city and environment. My preference is for a sole in-house Wellington City Council Water Business Unit responsible for the direct management and delivery of drinking water.
Thank you, Judy.
And stormwater services.
Yes, thank you, Judy. That's a good point to end. You've completed your 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Ray.
Selwyn? Selwyn, is it Burchich?
Burchich, yes, right.
Burchich. Selwyn, you had 2 slots, so we're going to combine them to give you 10 minutes.
I haven't got a lot to say.
That's fine.
But firstly, thank you for this opportunity. I understand it's a stretchy run, but I'm still very grateful for the opportunity to come and speak to you. I've lived here in Wellington for more than 60 years. I've owned a house in Wellington for more than 40 years. So I've seen a few changes, more than a few changes. And yeah, mine's just my home. I love it. And I hope to stay here as long as I possibly can. But there's a few little issues which are likely to have an impact on that. As a pensioner, I'm getting $30,000. I don't own any other properties. My rate's $7,300. My insurance and contents, $7,000. It's all getting a bit ridiculous, really. I mean, you've heard this from a number of people today, and before speaking today, before coming here, I talked to a number of my neighbours and said, you know, what are the issues that you would like me to bring up? What are the things that you really feel strongly about? And financial management and decision making are the big ones from a lot of it. And we also are a little bit astounded and surprised, all of us, at the very high incomes that senior council managers receive, and yet none of them have qualifications in engineering or accounting, or if they do, they're not asking good questions. I mean, there's no asset register, we have $51 million accounting errors. I mean, you don't need me to say any more, really. It's just seen such an incongruous situation. They get big salaries to say you're managing a lot of assets, a lot of responsibility to the community, many issues under your control. And yet we seem to have, dare I say it, when there are some good news stories, quite a high level of what seems to us incompetence, basic incompetence, where in our working lives we'd have been given the boot quite clearly for such issues of very poor financial management, poor contract management, and not having the right expertise in charge of areas such as Wellington Water. I mean, it's a civil engineering issue and financial management issue and a bit of meteorology and a few other disciplines. But I'm no expert, but I strongly suspect we have a dearth of expertise to assist with decision making in those areas. So John, who spoke earlier, I'm a great supporter of most of what he had to say. Also, the concepts of bringing it in the house, getting it back under control. Yes, there's issues around that. There's issues, doesn't matter which way you look. But it may sound a bit sad, but the consensus in my neighbourhood areas, drastic actions required. It's hard, I know, there's a lot of different interest groups serving many, many different aspects of our society, but the reality is shrinking population, more people of my age, limited incomes. It just doesn't fit. It's not going to work. It really isn't going to work. And you can't have, you know, a third of your ratepayers saying, no, we're not paying. You're going to have to wait till we die and you get money out of a property. Well, that's not, as a city, that just isn't going to work. But that's the direction that we're going right now. And that we just can't continue with that direction. I know it's hard. We understand that. But that is the consensus of a number of my neighbours. Yes, I support the Begonia House. Yes, it was granted to us. Yes, it's a jewel, but we can't have jewels everywhere. I mean, I'm mainly talking about the water, but with the parklets, I understand that. They benefit to the business, which is great. That's wonderful. And I'm a keen cycling. I've got a whole lot of push bikes. I love cycling, but There are probably only 15, 20% of the population who have the capacity to cycle, A, put up with the weather, B, have the strength and enthusiasm, and C, have somewhere secure to have their bike. I mean, I've had one bike stolen, and I virtually never ever bring a bike into town, because having had one stolen, even though it was secured, I'm not really looking forward to have any more stolen. So cycling is the future to a degree in terms of the big picture, climate change, etc. But for the next 10 years or so, I suggest we stop all progressive work in that area and give the population a bit of a chance to catch up. Those that can only use a bus, some people can't use buses. They've got hip issues, they've got knee issues. They need to have a car to go to their eye specialist, to go to their dentist, to go to their lawyer. But they can't because there's nowhere to park. It's a balancing issue. I think we've got our balance a little bit too far away from the majority of the population. We've got a lot of aspirational things which long term would be good, but for the next 5, 10 years we've just got to pull our collective heads in and say, no, stop, stop, stop. We've got to fit as other submits within our budget. I have to live within my budget. I have to stop doing things I would like to do at this stage in life because the demands on insurance and rates, and we've got energy costs, etc., are just getting to the level is, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do the other thing. You've got the library, you've got parks, you've got walks. There's a few other activities you're going to enjoy, but a lot of other things, I should be able to do a tour of the South Island or maybe go to Coromandel or have other experiences, but the money isn't there for me to do that. So I have to decide, no, I'm not doing those things. And I presume a number of other people have spoken to you on these same topics. Because we don't have responsibility for the support for the whole of Wellington, but please, please, in your decision making, consider we've got the shrinking population, high proportion of older people, limited incomes, the capacity to keep increasing overall costs. It just isn't there. I mean, I know a little bit about the property one. We have to give back hundreds of millions of dollars because of the money. If we try to give it all to the government, there's no easy answers in that area of community housing. But was it 2,300 or 2,400 per ratepayer? Really? Just for that community housing contribution, plus the water contribution, plus. It adds up to numbers which are not sustainable. I'm sorry to say. Because we just drive more people away and then we'll end up with a high proportion of the population that says, well, I don't have that kind of money, I can only pay this, you're going to have to take this year's increase or next year's increase when I die out of my property because I don't have the capacity to meet those demands. That's my reality. And it'll be the reality of thousands and thousands of ratepayers, not a few hundred, tens of thousands. And when something gets to that level, it's like, hang on. We've got a problem with our decision making. Because we can't go there. We can't put tens of thousands of ratepayers to that level. A few may already be there, but we can't operate a city with 20, 30, 40, 60,000 people saying, I can pay last year's rates, but no more. Or I can pay last year's rate plus 3%, which is the kind of increase we get across our general activities, which has to fund everything, insurance and power, etc. But proportion of rates cannot increase to the level that meets our financial planning. It's just not realistic. Anyway, I'll probably...
We'll just have one quick question from Councillor Abdurrahman.
Cool. Thank you for your submission. And let's say we agree on the financial mismanagement for the sake of argument for a second.
So we hire people who've got appropriate qualifications and experience to make good decisions and ask good questions because questioning skills are very, very important.
Cool. My question to you is that, do you see on top of that the model itself, the funding model for local government is broken?
It's broken. We should have a share of GST on the rates. Peter Dunn's proposal for a long time. Yeah. That would go quite a long way, because government has lumped on councils a lot of responsibilities with zero funding. They just think, oh, council's going to do this, council's going to be responsible for that, council will be responsible for the other thing. Each of us add to our costs, and we get no recompense, none.
Great. Thank you, Selwyn. We will...
Thank you for this opportunity.
That's all right. Thank you for coming and talk to us. We will proceed with Felicity Wong. A lot of clapping going on today. It's great. And then we will break for 5 minutes.
Kia ora. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Look, welcome to Matt Prosser, the new Chief Executive Officer, who's arrived at a tight fiscal spot. My request, please, is to make affordable use of existing city assets. There's more than 500 housing opportunities if you get a new flexible partnership with central government on housing. We need a city deal that encourages government to restart Arlington, refit historic Dixon Street flats, and help Victoria University Te Waka to refit the Gordon Wilson flats for student accommodation. It shouldn't have taken 2 community uprisings to find affordable solutions for minimal maintenance and renewal of the Begonia House and the Kandala Pool, but thank you for getting there in the end. If you can't affordably fix the Kori Event Center, return it back to the community as Colin Keaty proposed. The public do not want the city to see bridge demolished when it is not an earthquake-prone building. Please remove the item for borrowing funds to demolish the bridge from the annual plan, and let the expert engineers advise the new chief executive on affordable options for retention of that useful pedestrian bridge. It's a sad day when the Civic Trust has to take court action because the council fails to listen yet again. Some of your new projects are good for bigger cities, but just not affordable now for this small one. The Tanako Civic Square project needs to be independently reviewed to check it's affordable and that it's got public support before signing off effectively gifting civic land to precinct properties for a new private building set for June, or the development plan for the wider civic precinct in July. But what I'm really concerned about is the $2.4 million funding to explore the demolition of the Michael Fowler Centre. The public of this region are simply unaware of this proposal. Please remove it or tag it for exploring specific problems and a variety of specific affordable solutions. Drop the plan to bulldoze the beloved Michael Fowler Centre. Consult properly as the Court of Appeal requires under the Thorndon Collective Judgment. I urge you to make sufficient provision for eventual solutions for the Bond Store, the home of the Wellington Museum. It's an important cultural heritage building, along with the Opera House and Freiburg Pool, and I really enjoyed the Atomic concert filled to the gunnels last night at the Opera House. Absolutely thumping. Please explore affordable solutions, not demolitions, and retain the long-standing and highly useful Built Heritage Incentive Fund. Small amounts have gone a long way to help restore Wellington's heritage buildings. Thanks to cautious political candidates who want to pause in projects to check whether we can afford them, including the Organic Waste Project, further cycleways, and the City Streets Project. I support going it alone on water. We might complain about council not listening on other issues, but it's going to be a whole lot worse with a regional company that doesn't listen to us or has very little democratic accountability. Thank you to all staff and to you, elected representatives, for your hard work.
Better turn my mic on. We have no questions, so we're done. And we'll break for 5 minutes.
Isaac, welcome. And I'm just trying to find where you are on the list. You've got 5 minutes. I will set the clock for you. Thank you.
This city needs a place for the public to be having some of these discussions that we are having today, not locked away up in the office. On the street level, we need a speaker's corner, a place for performance, for art, for civic discussion, for creative and communal expression. I envisage this as a projection and a sound system that's open access to Wellingtonians all hours of the day. Right in Civic Square, where there's you have a stage and a place to perform, to speak your truth, in amongst that wonderful place for community with the council, the library. This space needs an arts hub, a place for street performance where different groups can turn up and plug into the system to perform their sounds, to present their PowerPoints, their visual, their films, and have a stage to sing their song and speak truth. Accompanied to this performance platform for our city is an adjacent kiosk, an eyesight with AI and screens that has information and history and culture of our city, where tourists and people of the city Wellingtonians can come and ask questions, can learn about our history and connect to this place. So it takes place as a performance precinct where you can engage with AI and systems that can take your questions and requests and output sound and video and creative media that's interactive, engaging, and promotes creativity within the participant who is engaging with this. We need to invest in this creative civic discussion so that the people on the street can have as much say, and just as you guys want feedback, want civic engagement, we need a speaker's corner in Civic Square for Wellington. I'll let Bethany speak.
Hi everyone, so that was Isaac, I'm Bethany, and I wanted to quickly speak to my submission on a few points. The main one is I think you're doing such a wonderful job. Thank you so much for leading the way for Aotearoa being our wonderful progressive council. It is so appreciated, and we love you, we support you as a whole every time, so please keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for connecting up the cycleways piece by piece. Please continue this until it's complete. It's making such a difference. I work with lots of both children and adults and lots of women who've never ridden a bike before, and it just gives them such an incredible access when you have such a mental barrier of safety. So please keep connecting them up. It makes such a big difference. And if they're disconnected, it means you can't necessarily get to where you want to go. We're currently, world leading with our plan for the cycleway. So let's continue that. I also wanted to say I so appreciate this city, how much public art we have, both Te Ao Māori and also lots of queer art, and I please continue doing that. Continue supporting the queer community like you do so well. The Rainbow Crossing, I'd love to see that trans flag crossing reinstated. I was so excited to see that. Let's get it permanent. And other kinds of monuments to queer history, for example, would be really cool and really special for the queer community, and especially the trans community who are doing it so tough at the moment. And finally, thank you for being a council that truly does support the arts. No matter how much funding you have overall, you always manage to give us a piece as a creative artist here. So please continue to do that. Continue supporting the arts, especially independent artists like myself. We think a lot about sort of big ticket items, venues that, big companies can use, but let's also think about how we can make all the venues that we're upgrading available to independent artists as well. A 10-second question, anyone?
I think we're out of time, but thank you so much, Bethany and Isaac. It was great. We're very appreciative of you taking the time to come and talk with us today. Thank you. Now we're going to a public participant online. Welcome to Simeon Collier-Foley from Generation Zero. Simeon, you have 10 minutes, and if you want to leave time for questions in that. Welcome. Over to you, Simeon.
Kia ora koutou, just making sure you can hear me all good.
Beautiful, we can hear you.
Fantastic. First, sorry that I couldn't be there in person. That was the plan originally. But I'm Simeon, here representing Generation Zero. I'm a student in Wellington, and Generation Zero, hopefully, as you know, is a youth-led climate justice organisation, and we have a lot of members around the country, a lot in Wellington, living, working and studying in our region here. I first want to comment on just specifically the bike network, which is a nice follow-on from the previous submitter. And Generation Zero is and always has been a strong proponent of safe and connected bike networks. As we noted in our submission, we think these kinds of infrastructure projects must be high on the priority list, and that's why we really urge the council to deliver the program within 10 years rather than continuing to delay longer some of those additional components as proposed in the long-term plan. We understand, though, that some of those decisions come from large funding challenges. And as is also shown with many of the other examples you're consulting on, Begonia House, Frankets Park, venues, community facilities, so many examples where you as a council are having to make seemingly impossible decisions between many options that feel like there's no correct answer, no winning option. So we sympathise and feel that also as submitters when options presented to us to consult on, it can feel like none capture the vision that we want for the future of our city. And that's why we, on the funding challenges, we really want to urge the council to increase funding as much as you can in as many ways as you can. Generally, ideally, a lot of that would be from central government collaboration. Obviously, that's been a big challenge, especially recently. So in the absence of that, as difficult as it is to say, and as difficult as it is politically to advocate for, we really believe that debt increases and rate increases are a necessity in the absence of other funding avenues. To avoid having to make such difficult decisions as this, and to ensure we don't leave the future city with more impossible challenges than you guys have inherited. And I think that point maybe on the central government collaboration, but also collaborating with other councils as you're doing with the water plan, but I don't think this consultation is on that specifically. I recently did Generation Zero submission to the Greater Wellington Regional Council, and I got to hear while I was waiting the council's submission, Wellington City Council's submission to that regional public transport plan, where it was said that you were really keen to collaborate with Greater Wellington Regional Council to lobby and communicate with the government for the need for further public transport funding. So we really want to emphasise how much we feel that kind of thing is necessary, and that kind of collective support between the councils. And we're glad that that's something they're already intending to do. What else have I wanted to speak on specifically? Yes, that was our comments on those funding challenges. Just a quick note on one of the annual plan points. we specifically want to emphasise what a beautiful opportunity you have as the council to support the mana whenua vision for Matai Moana and creating a reserve there. Absolutely want to support going ahead with that, and obviously it's a large amount of money going towards it, but what a beautiful initiative, what a wonderful opportunity you guys have to strengthen and continue on that relationship. And then other than those kind of specific points, just want to note the desire for, I suppose, an aspirational vision. Generation Zero is all about our hopeful vision for the future. And we know that when you're in these decision-making positions, you have so many decisions coming at you constantly, so many tough choices to make. And it's really easy to zoom in a lot on what's being put in front of you, what's the next thing that comes across your desk. So we just want to really remind of the need to always zoom out a bit and remember maybe the reason that you wanted to come to council, the changes that you wanted to be able to contribute to here, and hold that aspirational vision for the long-term future of our region in your minds when faced with some of these challenges where you may feel like there's necessity to reduce funding for a project or rephase something that really would be a beautiful thing for our future and to leave to the future generations of our region. Obviously, there's so many challenging decisions, but I think in the face of that, now's the time to be bold and brave. And so many of these challenges will only get more expensive to address. So why not go with it now when we have such opportunities as this? Thank you. I think I had something else to note, but if I remember it while you're asking questions, if you have any
I've got
questions.
a question for you, and if you think of it, Simeon, you can throw it in. Councillor Pannett has a question for you.
Thank you, Simeon. You may be aware that some people are worried about the cost of providing a whole lot of services. And I was just wondering if Generation Zero had done any thinking about how much of our economy is based on fossil fuels, and as we transition, we're going to have to find different ways of funding things and people, doing jobs which aren't reliant on fossil fuels.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's a huge question to try and answer succinctly on the spot. I don't know that I have the answers for you now, but yes, definitely we support things. We support movement towards a fossil fuel free economy in the future. There are times when, as Generation Zero, we've submitted on things that maybe seem don't align with that at first glance, such as to Greater Wellington Regional Council, we noted our support for the use of diesel buses and maintaining the network, things like that, and the interim periods of seeking electrification, because it's that holistic network that we support. And so I think we noted a similar thing with our comments previously on the long-term plan last year against selling the airport shares, which maybe seems odd for an organisation like ours who is climate justice focused to be wanting to hold on to something like the airport, which we know that aviation is a big contributor to fossil fuels generally, but we believed in the need to try and maintain some control in our assets like that. Yeah, does that get to your question? And it's a huge one.
I could talk to you offline sometime. Thanks a lot.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
I don't think we have any other questions, Simeon. So unless there's if you remembered another point you wanted to make, or if not, thank you for your submission. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. I do remember a final point. I haven't been able to tracking my time super well, so if I'm over time, just put me off.
You've got just under a minute.
Great. Well, to end off, I guess, just wanted to talk about risk. There's so much of the challenges come from, as noted in the consultation document, the huge insurance risk that the council is in. And those numbers, 1.8, $2.6 billion, is a terrifying number to be presented with in a position like yours with such responsibility for those assets and for our community. But we just wanted to reframe a bit and consider also the risk that comes with not boldly and dramatically funding initiatives for our future that you're in a position to do. So you've been presented with this number that is somewhat concrete. It's much harder to quantify the risk for not taking on aspirational projects for our future. So we want to remind that there's more risks to consider than just insurance risk. You're in a wonderful position.
Yeah,
Kia ora.
thank you. Kia
Thanks for your
ora,
time.
Simeon. Thanks for your submission. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And our next submitter is also online, Alex Hockley. No, my Alex. And you have 5 minutes.
All right.
Over to you.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Alex Hockley, tōku ingoa. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak and for the tireless work of the council staff who have been organising these oral submissions as well. I'm primarily here today to discuss one part of Pouneki's future, the Matai Moana Reserve, which I'm sure you've all heard a lot of support for recently as well. The long-term plan and annual plan are full of an enormous number of challenges and opportunities, but I'll let my written submission and the broader community speak to many of those. So as such, I want to focus on this proposed reserve, which in my view offers a once-in-a-generation opportunity to enrich Wellington's identity, storytelling, environment and public amenity. Matai Moana offers an opportunity like no other in many ways, and to have this whenua that is full of history, yet empty of predators, and in such a large scale, so close to a city centre, is something that very, very few other cities worldwide can boast. And yet the public at this stage hardly knows about it. So if you tell many Wellingtonians that there is an operating farm in Miramar, they will look at you in disbelief. But as soon as you explain the tales from the area, they all desire to go and visit it themselves. It's now time, I think, for the stories of Matai Moana to be shared more widely. I had the privilege of discovering some of these stories for myself while running Hiamu, a company focused on augmented reality mobile apps to share Wellington's hidden heritage, which included visualising the lost guns at Fort Balance. But through this research, and also becoming far too engrossed in our nation's coastal defence history, I realised that this land carries far more than just these military sites. It is an area full of the deep histories of mana whenua, of fantastical tales of perceived Russian invasions, of nature, of exploration, regrowth, and of connection. It's a portal to the stories of our country, which feel so separate from today, but have shaped our city into what it is now. The future is bright for Matai Moana if we allow it to be. The incredible work of Victoria University's School of Architecture has provided some glimpses into what this future could entail. A site for tours led by mana whenua, for heritage interpretation, exploration of our shared history, ecological regeneration, growing native bush, community gardens, and more that we cannot even imagine yet. A real crown jewel for Te Motu Kārangi. Of course, this does come at a difficult time for the city's budget, as you'll all be aware, but visionary work really does begin when it is convenient. I urge you all to support this proposal and to take our city's next step in stewarding the environment, strengthening our partnerships with mana whenua, and prioritising our sense of place through history. While it might seem easier to offload this task to central government, I would view that likely as a mistake. It risks seeing the site languish once again as waiting for a future that might never come. You all have the opportunity now to ensure that doesn't happen and to also ensure that Pouneki benefits from local focused visions that your council can provide alongside mana whenua partners. And as someone who works in the heritage and community engagement space, I see this as one of the most meaningful ways for our city to lead, by showing that underused whenua can be turned into a taonga, not solely by planting trees or building tracks, although those are obviously very important, but by also telling the full story of a place and inviting the public and nature back into it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Alex. I don't see any questions, but I really want to express our appreciation for you taking the time to share your thoughts with us today.
Brilliant. Thank you all very much.
Kia ora. All right. I'd now like to welcome David Pannett from Creative New Zealand. No mai, David. Nice to see you. And you have 10 minutes.
Kia ora, ngā mihi. Kei ngā rangatira mā, tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui ki te kaunihera. I'm David Pannett, the Senior Manager for Strategy and Engagement at Creative New Zealand Toi Aotearoa. So I'm here representing CNZ and our governing board, the Arts Council, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. It's great to see you again. It's kind of weird to think it's been a year, but there we go. Time flies when you're having fun, right? Creative New Zealand Toi Aotearoa is the National Arts Development Agency of Aotearoa, New Zealand. We encourage, promote and support the arts for the benefit of all New Zealanders. We've been a co-investor in the arts community for over 60 years now, since we kicked off in 1964. And in the 2023-24 financial year, we provided $12.2 million of direct financial support to the arts, culture, creativity and Ngā Toi Māori in Wellington. We really value our collaboration with Wellington City Council in supporting a vibrant, connected and economically strong city. It's fantastic to see the long-term plan amendment and annual plan celebrate arts, culture, creativity and Ngā Toi Māori as important building blocks for a dynamic and vibrant city. We thank you for your ongoing support and for the creative sector, and a special thanks to the Mea Tory for your great advocacy for arts, culture, creativity and Ngā Toi Māori. In March, with the Arts Foundation, we hosted All In for Arts, He Waka Toi E Eke Noa Nei Tātou at Parliament. It was really exciting to work with Wellington creatives and other local leaders on that event who spoke of creativity as a force woven into our whakapapa, cultural heritage and everyday lives. And I'll steal the Mayor's words there. Arts and culture, especially for Wellington, are the basics. It's part of our lifeblood, it's part of our soul, and we totally agree. So we have a few key messages for you today. Message one, Wellingtonians strongly support arts, culture and creativity. I know I'll be preaching to the converted on that, but it's worth saying again because it's gold standard. So from our most recent research, we know that New Zealanders on the whole, personal connection with the arts continues to grow. Research tells us that around 70% of Wellingtonians recognise the benefits of the arts to the economy and to wider society. There's also strong support for public funding of the arts broadly, and for Wellington City Council to fund the arts in Wellington. And Wellingtonians' overall participation in the arts is at its highest ever level, with Ngā Toi Māori, Pacific arts and performing arts being the biggest drivers of greater engagement. We can see that in some of the wonderful events and happenings that occur regularly, World of Wearable Art and its financial contribution, of course, but the festival that supports the city's entire creative ecosystem, Cuba Duper's enormous success as well, and the way council support for grassroots local festivals brings the city to life, enhances social wellbeing and connection, and showcases Pōneke creative communities on a national stage. The next message, Council is a crucial investor and partner. So we congratulate Council on providing more arts and culture funding through the LTP. We're thrilled to see this new investment over the next 3 years alongside the addition of the living wage. We're keen to work with you as the new funding program is rolled out. It's significant and strategic work for the Wellington creative sector. Your investment unlocks more investment. Council funding enables arts organisations to leverage funding from other sources, including us. And consistent funding from Council is vital in supporting the arts ecosystem in Te Whanganui-a-Tara. We're all aware that that ecosystem is fragile, and our research tells us that the average income for creative professionals remains stubbornly low, $37,000 per annum, $19,500 from creative pursuits alone, which is compares to about $62,000 for average salary and wage earners. So our combined support enables the creative sector to continue delivering value, connection and community for Wellingtonians. Last message, working together is key. Arts organisations, iwi and hapu, others are natural partners in building a thriving, diverse Wellington. It's been great to see the intentions to make Te Ngā Kō a thriving arts hub for the city. Council's focused on the opportunity to work with local Toi Māori artists, but maybe missing the deep level of engagement with bicultural work already present in Te Ngākau. The creative sector helps Council deliver on its vision for Pōneke, the creative capital where people and nature thrive. Secure and stable investment in cultural infrastructure, services and activities by Council through the LTP and annual plan is crucial for the arts and culture ecosystem in Pōneke. So, to wrap up, arts, culture, creativity brings life, colour and joy to the city, evidenced recently with Kuperupa's enormous success, as I mentioned. City Council's support brings the city to life, showcases our communities on the creative communities on the national stage, resetting the city as electric, vital and accessible. It's essential infrastructure for strong, prosperous, connected and healthy communities. It needs the same care and ongoing support from Council as other community infrastructure, like water, like transport. Continued investment through the annual plan will enable the sector to help you achieve your vision and ambitions for Wellington, and your investment unlocks greater impact than just dollars alone. We are both welcoming in new chief executives, so let's use this opportunity to work more closely to ensure thriving, creative and economically strong Te Whanganui a Tara. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa, mauri ora kia tātou katoa.
Thank you, David. We have a couple of questions for you. The first one from Councillor Calvert.
Yes, look, I saw in your submission that you've contributed about 80 million, I think, to funded programs in the last financial year. How's your funding this financial year and going into the next? Has that been cut or has it increased?
Sure, it stayed about the same. What's happened, our government, we get about a quarter of our money from the government through Vote Arts, Culture and Heritage, and about 3/4 through lottery profits, as do Sport New Zealand, the Film Commission, etc. So the government contribution stayed the same, wasn't cut in last year's budget, and we're very grateful for that. The lotto is about the same as it was, so and that's been locked in and projected out for the next 3 years as well. So stable funding is what it.
Chair, I had one more question. Could I ask it? We are the Wellington. We appreciate the amount of money we're getting, and I'm not sure how it fits in with the proportion of population. But we are the arts capital, and we are the home to the Royal New Zealand Ballet and the NZSO. So how is the government contributing? Can the government contribute more, or Creative NZ contribute more to those organisations? Because we're hearing that their funding's tight.
Yes, yeah, their funding's tight across the board, it would be fair to say. Those organisations, the ballet, the orchestra, Te Matatini, others, are funded directly through the ministry as well. So there are about 16 arts, culture, heritage organisations that are funded direct through the ministry. So their funding gets wrapped up through there. I think there's more room for us to be working together across the cultural agencies. More often than not, we get so focused on our own work programs and distributing our own money that we sometimes forget about we're all in this together in terms of we have a role to play in ensuring, for Wellington in particular, a strong, vibrant arts community. So I think there's more to be done there about linking us all up and seeing where we can work together. We do work with some of those agencies on specific projects, with the orchestra in particular, a great program around boosting or training up young Pacific arts conductors as well, which has been really successful. So yeah, but always room to do more.
Councillor Wineta.
Kia ora. In terms of increasing capability for arts workers in Wellington, do you feel that a more effective way for Council to use its resources would be to ensure we get higher wages for arts workers, or to increase the capability of sort of training and wraparound things that existing arts organisations like CCAT have?
Yeah, I'm going to take the coward's option and say it's a bit of both, I think. On the one hand, the more or the better financially sustainable and better career options there are for people on the money side, fantastic, because we want to see artists thrive. That's one of our new goals under our new strategy that's coming up around thriving artists and tour and practitioners, because it is money, but it's also the ability to upskill, put yourself forward confidently, work with a range of supporters for your work. So it's not either or. It's certainly a bit of both, the proportion of which will probably change over time for different communities and for different artists as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Quick one, Councillor Young.
So I think the NZSO and the New Zealand Royal Ballet, they're funded by the ministry, as you said. New Zealand Opera is not regarded as a national company, I found out quite recently. Is there any move to make it into a national company so that it gets funding direct from the ministry?
It's something that's been talked about over the years. Like lots of there's pros and cons, I guess, with direct line funding. Quite often, we've been able to fund organisations supported through us more over time because we've had the kind of largesse of increasing lotto profits as well, whereas government budgets can stay fairly static. So there's pros and cons in that. There's cases to be made. We are proud to support New Zealand Opera through our programs, which are getting a bit of a refresh at the moment too, to make sure that they're right and proper and delivering the right things and that under our new funds. So, yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's what I'd say. Yep.
All right, we're out of time. Ngā mihi, David. It's always lovely to see you. Thank you.
Nice to see you all as well. Thank you.
All right, I'd now like to welcome up Taranaki Whanui, Karapuka Tapu Dentist, Benjamin Wynyard. Terry, that's a lot of names for two people. It's greedy. No, lovely to see you. You have 10 minutes.
Kia ora mai tātou karere atu rā ngā mihi kia koutou katoa. It's great to be here again. I think this is the third or fourth time I've been in the chamber over the submission period, and I guess it just sort of reflects the number of kaupapa across our beautiful city and the partnership not only at a council level but across all these individual projects which make the great city that it is. And I was quite heartened when I walked in and to hear the kōrero, the submission from Alex, totally unexpected. Didn't pay him, don't even know him. But to hear that from Alex was really heartening, and it's quite clear that others, not just mana whenua, see a very similar vision for Matai Moana and Motu Kairangi. So I'll go back to my script. Again, thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Taranaki Whanui ki te upoko o tika. We stand here in support of a kaupapa that transcends budget lines and political cycles, a kaupapa that is not just about the present, but about the legacy we shape for future generations. This is always about a mokopuna and making sure that we're making tupuna decisions. It speaks to the kind of city we aspire to be, not merely in vision, but through decisive action. Our message is quite clear. We support the establishment of Matai Moana as a reserve on Te Motu Kairangi, and we strongly endorse the preferred option that Council upholds its financial commitment and enters into a joint stewardship model with us. This is about partnership. This is about inclusion. This is about shared guardianship, where responsibility is honoured, voices are uplifted, and the future of the whenua is shaped together. As you've already heard, Matai Moana holds deep spiritual, ecological, and cultural value, a site that carries the footprints of our tupuna and the aspirations of our mokopuna. This whenua is not just a landscape, it is a legacy. Te whetū kairangi, our pā, kāinga, mahinga kai, these are not forgotten fragments of the past. They are part of the living identity of this takiwa, of this place. Many people have cared for this land, volunteers, and they continue to care for this land. Volunteers, schools, restoration groups, mana whenua. We acknowledge all of them. Their contribution matters, they matter, and we thank them for all the mahi that they do. And we hope and we expect that as we transition into the next phase, that we just add an extra bit of fuel to the fire to take it to the next level. So we come here not seeking permission. We come here because obligation calls us to. As mana whenua, as tangata whenua, as ahika, we're stepping forward under the mantle of our obligation, ready to enter into a co-stewardship relationship with Council in good faith and with a vision that includes everyone. We have engaged widely with our own iwi members, ministers, yourselves, councillors, Wellington Airport, predator-free, Miramar, local businesses, environmental leaders, and we even had a chat with our friends at Wingnut Films, Sir Peter Jackson, educators and other community groups. Across all those conversations, the message is clear. There is a shared desire to see Matai Moana become a place of restoration, of learning, and of civic pride. But what matters now is action. Some have tried to reduce this kaupapa, to cloud it with fear and to frame it as a contest for ownership and access. Let's not get caught up in the smoke. The opportunity is too big. The obligation is too huge. This is a defining moment, a chance for Wellington to lead, not with symbolic gestures, but with structural commitment, to give life to the promise of Te Tiriti o Waitangi and to uphold the principles of our tākai here relationship. To say this land will be protected, not just for its beauty, but for its truth. Matai Moana is not just a reserve proposal, it is our tupuna, a tupuna whose legacy must continue. This is a chance to restore not only the whenua, but the relationship between the city and us, its first people. Council has supported this kaupapa since 2018. That support has laid the foundation. Now we ask you to take the decisive step to elevate the words into action and commitment into reality. Let us walk this path together, not just as policymakers, as trustees, as CEOs, or as advocates or as councillors, but as joint stewards of something much greater than ourselves. Nā reira marungi, tēnā ka arere aturanga mihi kia koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Yes, so I had myself on the list first with a question, and I was wondering if, from your perspective, this kind of willingness to, or wanting to enter into a partnership with us on Te Matai Moana is a sign of a deepening relationship, or something that's actually improved over recent years?
Look, we wouldn't have come to you if we didn't think that the relationship was a strong relationship. Like all relationships, they go through their ups and downs and their ins and their outs. But the reality of it is that in order to affect the level of stewardship that we need for Matai Moana, we need to have a relationship with an organisation that is close to its community, that is close to its place, that it has a close understanding of this site and its whenua and this whenua. And the reality is that City Council is a natural partner in this space.
Councillor Calvert has a question.
So why partner with the council? Why not with the government, because they own the land, or Greater Wellington, which normally look after large reserve pieces of land? And I'm asking that from a purely financial perspective because of the cost, because we've got other reserve land that we own that we can't afford to maintain. So, and that's probably where my concerns are in this arrangement.
I guess it's probably a question that the council should ask itself, because it's already signalled that it wants to participate in the establishment of a reserve as per your resolution of 2018. So I guess we're only entering into this conversation on the basis that you already have an agreed position to enter into conversations, at least with the Crown, with respect of establishing a reserve at Matai Moana. If that position has changed, then we need to have a different conversation. Councillor Calvert.
That's where I'm confused too. Yeah.
Well, and also reflected in the preferred option that we are currently consulting on. Councillor Abdurrahman.
Thank you, Cara. Always interesting to listen to your soft delivery. And my question is, why do you think some people are a bit, a lot of communities are in support of it, but some people, they seems to be questioning? Is that purely financial, or is that something that they approached you and then you're trying to address? There are some people who just seems to be against it, and that a bit reflected in the consultation as well. We don't expect anything 100% support, but do you think there anything out there that you're dealing with to address it in some way?
I guess, as with every proposal that you put forward, you have those who are against it, those who are for it, and those who are ambivalent. We've had interactions with key groups, as I've said before, across the Miramar, within Miramar, who have strong views, who have invested time, sweat, energy, love, passion into various projects throughout Te Motu Kairangi. And it's quite categorical, the level of support from those groups for this proposal. And I think also maybe people's reluctance is the fact that it's something new, or it's something maybe a little bit novel. It's not really novel to us. For us, this is very normal. But I think with change, people take some time to adjust. And look, with respect of the dollars and all those sorts of things, we're going through our own internal process as a board with respect of what contributions we'll be making, and we have some in-principle decisions that have already been made in that regard. And once those in-principle decisions become formal decisions, we'll inform you at that appropriate time of what contribution we'll be making as a partner in this project.
You got time for a couple more questions? Yep. Lovely. Councillor Chung has one.
Great. My question is also about finances. You would have been following our long-term plan deliberations, and we really are, very, very short of money. So, and you're looking at this partnership, and a lot has been said about the partnership. Would Taranaki Whānau be conducive to actually splitting the cost of this, rather than the council picking up all of it?
I guess where I've sort of my answer before is we've committed to our own internal process around a budget allocation within our own annual plan, and that's gone through an in-principle decision, and then next week I'll hopefully have a formal approval of our contribution to Te Motu Kairangi to Matai Moana. And I guess, yes, I do recognise that council is tied up against it. There's a whole number of priorities that you need to tend to, from Three Waters to roading to all sorts of things. But I guess what I'm saying is that this is a legacy project. We're looking to come to the table with some financial pūtea. You have already got some financial pūtea baked into your long-term plan. There is a Plymouth Fund which also has some financial pūtea, and I also believe that this is one of those types of projects that would actually be able to effectively solicit funding from philanthropic funds and other groups and organisations and significant people who would like to contribute to, as one submitter had said, the Stanley Park of Wellington, because of its significance and because of where it is and its historical connections and relationships and opportunities. So, I think there is in the scheme of things, the contribution that Wellington City Council is making in its long-term plan, it's not. It is significant, but in comparison to many other things that you're staring down as well, it's not comparatively as big.
One last question from Councillor Young.
This is incredibly exciting. It seems like it's been a long, long time getting to the stage. I'm just wondering, thinking ahead, excuse me, is there any thought being given to the introduction of endangered native birds. Obviously the kiwi, but also I'm thinking of the kakapo.
Ooh, the kakapo.
I've been down to Christmas Island.
The residents might not like that. But look, we've got a really tight partnership, as you would have seen, with Capital Kiwi. And I know that one of the things that we're looking to do with Ngai Tahu is to introduce tākahē into Wellington. So look, anything is possible and there's a will for it, and the investment that we have collectively put into keeping Wellington predator-free means that we can make those decisions with confidence that when we introduce new manu, they will survive, actually they will thrive, and they have been thriving, and Matai Moana will most definitely play a part in that.
It's a great point to finish on. Thank you so much. Kia ora. We've got a 10-minute break now, councillors. We'll be back at 4:10.
Chester and Sarah. You've got 5 minutes. Hello. Yes, you need to press the little button and it'll go green and away you go.
Just read it. Kia ora, guys. We're here to talk about the proposed Airbnb commercial rates addition. So, kia ora, councillors. When major events converge in Wellington, like WOW, the All Blacks and the Jazz Festival, this city buzzes. Last year's World of Wearable Arts alone brought in over 30 million into our local economy. Short-term rentals are part of what make that buzz possible. Yet the council is considering a policy that could apply commercial rates to all short-term rentals, no matter how small the operation. As hosts, we believe that's blunt, unfair, and more likely to hurt Wellington than help it. Airbnb reported in 2022 bookings added 2.8 billion to New Zealand's GDP and supported 22,500 jobs. Of that, an estimated 194 million was spent right here in Wellington, supporting around 1,000 local jobs. These guests don't just sleep in our homes, they buy breakfast on Cuba Street, they hop on Ubers to Lyall Bay and pour their money into arts, retail and hospitality sectors. Events rely on those extra beds. When hotels fill up, and they do, short-term rentals absorb the overflow. During WOW last year, guests were being encouraged to stay in Palmerston North. Take away Wellington's short-term rentals and big events may simply go elsewhere. At a time when the government is investing millions into our tourism economy, is now really the time to try and limit the places they can stay. I'd like to highlight our situation and what it would look like if a commercial rate was applied to short-term rentals without exemptions. We rent out a sleep out on our property. It's about 20% of the floor space. In the 2023-24 tax year, we earned around 18,000 from Airbnb. After tax, that left about 13,000. And that 13,000 hasn't been spent on anything flash. That money immediately goes on to paying off our mortgage and into our exceptionally high rates. Under a partial commercial rate model where just 20% was charged commercial rates, our annual council rate bill would jump to over $8,300. That means more than half of our post-tax income would go straight to the council. And that's for a space that isn't even occupied year-round. It's worth pointing out that our sleep out can't be a long-term rental. It doesn't have a kitchen, it's too small to be practical. It isn't housing stock being taken away from renters, it's simply a space that helps us cover the rising costs of living in the city. And I know I'm not alone. Most hosts aren't running businesses at scale. We're just regular Wellingtonians, families renting a spare room or a home we still use ourselves. We're not building commercial kitchens or adding en-suites to every room, and in many cases we're just trying to hang on to our homes. Yet under this policy, the council would charge some hosts per room more in rates than some of our hotels. The James Cook Hotel is approximately $3,500 per room in annual rates. Nomad hostels around $3,100 per room. A two-bed Airbnb in Wadestown under a commercial rating would be over $9,100 per room. How's that fair? Especially when AirDNA data shows Wellington's Airbnb occupancy averages 50%, meaning these homes are used less intensively than full-time residences and place less demand on infrastructure. If the goal here is to free up long-term rentals, then that needs to be made explicit. It must be backed by evidence because research shows that rents are far more strongly linked to population growth and mortgage rates than to short-term listings. And more of the places we're talking about, like sleep-outs, batches and second dwellings, aren't suitable for permanent tenants anyway. To conclude, every lost stay is a breakfast not eaten at Fidel's, a beer not poured at Garage Project, and an Uber not taken to the airport. Multiply that by hundreds of bookings, and the hit to our economy is obvious. Wellington shines when it's full of guests. This proposal would dim that light. It risks costing jobs, closing listings and making our city less welcoming at the exact moment the government is investing in international marketing to bring more people here. So our message is simple: be targeted, be fair, and don't punish small hosts for trying to participate in our city's success. Thank you for your time. Ngā mihi.
Thank you, Chester. We have a question from Councillor Wanera.
Kia ora, I really hate the do you realise question, so I'm not going to do one of that. But would you be more amenable to the policy if, I told you that people in your situation actually would not be touched by this policy?
That is reassuring, but the wording sounds like it's the preferred option, but whether we get a preferred option is up for debate. So yeah, it is nice to know, but we want to know what we're doing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are still awaiting our online presenter, so we'll move to Louise Tong. Louise has 10 minutes.
Okay. I'll try and multitask. Kia ora, everyone. I'm speaking here today on behalf of myself and Wellington Rates Revolt, a group of over 1,100 ratepayers founded early last year by Kōrau retiree Judy Roloff. Whilst we all have the love of our city in common, what we would like is some greater alignment in some other areas. I first want to discuss getting a key assumption right in the long-term plan, and then cover 3 things that we would like to see from the council. The prize, if we get this right, is that we can restore some social unity to our city, balance the books, and revitalise Wellington. It's not working. Oops, here we go. This graph shows that in the last 10 years, our city grew by 10,000 people. Somehow, despite the ballooning rates, there will be, under the council's forecast, 20,000 people moving here in the next 10 years. This just does not add up, as recent history has borne out. The council needs to update its heroic population forecasts to something more realistic. What will happen to our rate hikes if this assumption does not eventuate? Your ratepayers are hurting. Many of them are on fixed incomes, and many of them are under financial pressure. People have financial limits, and our city has become unaffordable to many, thanks in large part to rate hikes. Businesses too have financial limits, and they are hitting the wall. These photos, these for lease signs, are all taken within just a few metres of the town hall, and similar signs proliferate throughout our city. People are not happy with the direction of the city. In 2018, 86% of people said the city centre is lively and attractive. That's a paltry 37%. People are voting with their feet. People have choices about where they live, and they are not choosing Wellington. Relative affordability is highly likely to feature in people's decisions about where they live. So as well as getting the foundational assumptions right, there are 3 things that we would like to see to bring back the buzz to our city. Firstly, ratepayers need to be able to trust that the council is spending each and every dollar very carefully. There are too many examples where this is not the case. The rates money you get is hard earned, and in some cases, people have had to go without to pay their rates. There are also too many examples where we are not getting value for ratepayer money. Here, Frank Kitts Park, the upgrade was twice the cost and half the size of the Margaret Mayhew playground in Christchurch. It is very easy, it seems, for the council to be generous with ratepayer money. We see gold-plated options time and time again, and fruitless projects pursued all too often. One of the most galling examples is the construction of a $55 million cycleway on Thorndon Quay, when the council knew it was building on top of failing pipes. The photo on the left I took just a few days ago. It is the fourth such example I have seen when cycling past in recent months. What an utter and obvious waste of money, not to mention a failure to listen to the community. Some of my favourites are the signs to the stadium, since removed, and the wiggly woggly line painted up the bridle path and then subsequently removed, all at a cost to the ratepayer. More material is the mismanagement and lack of governance, including by the Council of Wellington Water, which has no doubt cost your ratepayers tens of millions. So, treat ratepayers' funds like every dollar matters, because it does. Secondly, we would like the Council to prioritise just doing the basics well. These photos are the northern entrance to our city. Neglected, rusty, and weed-ridden. Just do the basics well, like track maintenance. Boring, but absolutely necessary. Why are you gifting $750,000 a year to a Crown Iwi project for the Miramar Peninsula when the money is so desperately needed for maintaining what we already own? We strongly recommend option 2 for Matai Moana. Just do the basics well. Our city is dirty, it is tired, and it is neglected, and you're cutting the graffiti budget. The graffiti cleanup. But worst of all, our city is unsafe. This photo was taken 2 days ago. It's the Cable Street crossing by St John's Bar. It is just metres from where 28-year-old Cass Maguire was killed by a drunk driver when she was crossing in 2023. There is actually someone crossing the road in this photograph, but it is impossible to see in the darkness, thanks to the proliferation of broken street lights that have been out for weeks now. So just do the basics well. Please don't demolish these beloved community assets and buildings, especially when there is a comprehensive review underway as we speak, looking at seismic standards for existing buildings. Just keep up the maintenance on the assets you already have. And don't take on vast numbers of new and complex projects all at once that ratepayers can ill afford and that will add to your asset management burden. With nearly $2 billion across 10 major projects underway, it is no wonder we have cost overruns, delays and disruption. And even though some of these projects will wrap up soon, there will be ongoing challenges, particularly in relation to water infrastructure. One way or another, residents will be paying. So we ask that the Council focuses on the basics and stops doing some things. Stop water consultation, stop seismic upgrades and demolition until there is greater regulatory certainty, and stop the long-term plan until your assumptions are updated and your plan is affordable. Look, we applaud the Council turning its attention to savings, but instead of focusing on these small bare community cuts, we suggest there are better places to look. These are the big ticket items that the Council should be focusing on. There are potentially billions of savings over the long-term plan. This year, Council operating costs will be $1 billion, an increase of 60% in just 4 years. There are $1.8 billion of projects that are not must-haves. Many are gold-plated and they are not affordable. We do believe libraries are important, but we're concerned at the $524 million cost to run 14 libraries, especially compared to other centres across the country. This needs investigating and surely some savings can be found. In particular, I want to call out social housing. The Council is spending $910 million net of ratepayer money on social housing. We all agree social housing is important, which is why it is provided everywhere by central government. The cost at around $500,000 per social housing unit is jaw-dropping. Not only does the expenditure need revisiting, the council needs to have a good look at what is in its social housing portfolio. This $1.4 million villa in the picture does not look like cost-effective social housing to me. If the council adopts this approach, it would open up some really attractive options for the city. As well as keeping rates affordable, the council could make the city more business friendly, upholding its promises on parking and commercial rates differentials, and making the city accessible to all, with some cycleways and public transport and lots of street parking. It means you could afford to invest in keeping our city tidy, clean and safe. You could make new build consents more affordable. You could invest in the jewels in our city's once sparkling crown. This photo represents that we have hope for that future. I yield the floor, as they say.
Thank you, Louise. That's the end of your time.
Oh, thank you.
That was about.
It's supposed to be 9 minutes. Never mind.
Thank you. Can I have Heather Baldwin from the Kōrau Community Hall Trust? Heather, you've got 10 minutes.
Kia ora koutou. I'm Heather Baldwin, Chair of the Kōrau Community Hall Trust, and I'm here to ask Council to honour its long-standing commitment to complete the Kōrau Event Center. We were not consulted on the options provided to you. Our preferred option would be that you finish the Event Centre as you agreed when you accepted the gift of the building 2.5 years ago. We need you to keep your promises, promises that are not only this council's, but council after council for the last 20 years. Thank you for allowing me to speak this afternoon. I know this week has been challenging as many submitters are asking for things not to be cut from the budget. I will not disappoint you, I'm asking that too. I honestly do not understand why, when you have a $4.8 billion capital spend over the next 10 years, that saving about $1 million on the Kōrau Event Center is being proposed, presumably because you think it's the lowest value spend in this program. And it beggars belief that you would break the promises made to Kōrau residents since 2005. We need you to keep your promises. I'm not going to repeat the history of the Event Centre and our partnership with Council. It's in our submission and I've explained it in the past. But I want to address some questions that I've heard councillors raise. Is this a council project? The answer is yes. It's been supported by successive councils for 20 years. I can provide you with the minutes and motions from council meetings where this is clearly identified. The backing and support from council, including letters of comfort, were crucial to community fundraising. Kōrau and other Wellington residents put their money where our mouths are. We put our hands in our pockets. Volunteers gave time and effort. We've worked tirelessly with you because of your promises. We need you to hold up your end of the bargain and get this building finished and flourishing. We need you to keep your promises. Is the building needed? The answer is yes. You clearly demonstrated this through your own needs analysis in 2006 and 2016. There's a severe shortage of space in Kōrau. We've lost 10 community halls in the last 20 years. Yes, we are a community hub with a library, a rec centre, a pool and a small community centre. But can you have a funeral in a swimming pool, a performance in the school library, a choir practice at the rec centre? No, no, no. A hall is vital to connect our community. We need this space. We need you to keep your promises. Is this building supported by the community? The answer is yes. This is self-evident, but here are some statistics. Over 1,400 signatures were received in our petition to you in January 24. People asked you to fund, finish and open the event centre. 72% of respondents to the Kōrau Residents Association annual survey last year agreed Council should complete the centre. Over 1,600 submissions regarding just the Kori Event Center have been received by you from the Trust during this LTP consultation. That's equivalent to 40% of all the submissions you received on the LTP last year. Included in that number are powerful submissions from schools, a range of community organisations, groups and sports clubs. Local businesses support the centre, which you would notice from the posters up in almost every shop in Karori. Over 2,700 separate donations, sponsorships and grants have been made to the Kori Event Center Trust, totalling in $2.2 million. People want the event centre and they want you to keep your promises. Should council be investing in this community facility? The answer is yes. Now, I know some of you think council should not be taking on new facilities and justify the proposed sale or demolition of the event centre for that reason. But yesterday you supported investigating a recreation centre at Johnsonville. I've read the papers from yesterday's meeting. You agreed to look at leasing a space for this facility and the costs of fitting it out. How is it that you seem willing to contemplate finding the funding for that new community facility, and yet at the same time you're proposing to sell or demolish the Kōrau Event Centre? The latest facilities plan shows that there's a lack of recreation space in the northern suburbs, and it also states that gap exists in the western area. The report from yesterday's meeting justifies your decision by saying it aligns with Council's strategic priorities of social and economic wellbeing, effective delivery and revitalising the city and suburbs to support a thriving and resilient economy. The same applies to the completion of the event centre. What is different, however, is that you committed to the event centre as far back as 2005, with numerous promises since then to fund and finish it. Our building is already standing and already mostly paid for. Council needs to accept its historic support for it and keep your promises. Is the building sound? The answer is yes. We think councillors have been misled about the state of the building. I've heard some of you refer to it as being leaky. For those of you who are visiting next week, you will see that there's not a big problem with this building. We've had an architectural firm who specialise in building and compliance issues look at the documents and photos and walk around it. Their assessment is that the event centre is well designed and well built. We believe the weather tightness issue is overstated and being used as an excuse. Yes, there are issues that need to be addressed to get the building finished and opened, but these are all included in the cost estimates. And that brings me to my last question. Can the event centre be finished for a reasonable amount? The answer is yes. I think council figures are overstated by at least $500,000. For starters, there's $200K for seating that the council know we have promised to pay for. The estimate for the flooring is double what's needed. That alone saves $100K. There's $90K for a security system. Does that sound reasonable to you? Consultancy and consent fees are estimated at close to $500,000. That's nearly 22% of the build cost. Our advisors say it should be about half that number, given the building is nearly complete. With more prudent costings and value engineering, our advisors believe the event centre could be finished and open for significantly less than what council officers have said. You know, I find it quite disheartening and extraordinary to be here again making these arguments about why you should deliver on promises of successive councils to finish the event centre. I find it equally perplexing that you can find the funds to start a range of new projects across the city but not finish this one. I struggle to fathom why, when you plan to spend $4.8 billion on capital projects over the next 10 years, that somehow the Kōrau Event Centre, a nearly finished building that you have supported for 20 years, is somehow the lowest value spend on that program, and the one that you're contemplating selling or putting a bulldozer through. Again, I urge you to show your integrity, to deliver on your promises and to finish the Kōrau Event Centre. Thank you.
Any questions, anyone? Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much, Heather. Have you looked at the cost of actually fixing those supposed leak problems, water ingress problems, and the cost of it?
Look, we haven't. Council have figures which is included in the cost estimates that we've been given. We believe that they're minor and able to be remedied. When councillors go in next week to have a look, you'll see that there's some areas that have been cut open. You will see no wetness, you will see no mould, there is no smell. This is not a building with a trademark red flag leaky building signs. It's well designed and well built. Our specialist advisor thinks that it's actually been over-emphasised, and what's more, the remediation is included in the figures the council have given.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank
and
you.
We look forward to seeing you next week when we come on our little road trip.
I do just have a copy of my notes here if anybody would like them. I'll leave them
You can
with staff. Thank you.
pass them to our DEM services people. Thank you. So we do have 2 people online. We'll go with Sam first because this was a slot, and then after that I think we've got Alistair Stewart who's there as well, so just a little wave, Alistair, and we'll get to you after Sam's had his 10 minutes.
Kia ora. Is that my cue to start? Cool.
That's your cue to start.
Cool, thank you. Kia ora, ko Sam tōku ingoa no Malaysia o Kutipuna I tipu ake au ki Malaysia me o Totahi e noho ana au ki Makara ki te whanganui atara e no reira tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Sam. I am one of the co-chairs at TRAC, which is the Takatapu and Rainbow Advisory Council at WCC. And I'm here to talk through our submission for the LTP and annual plan. Now, just to give a rough rundown for the statistics of the Rainbow residents in Wellington City, based on the 2023 census, we know about 11% of the city's population is actually identify as Takatapui or Rainbow. And so that's kind of about 1 in 10 people. And based on a really cool map circulated by Councillor Pennant, we know that about 20% of the residents in Aro Valley sort of identify as to be under the LGBTQ umbrella. And that seems to be concentrated mostly around the central suburbs in Aro Valley and Te Aro and places like that. And that sort of gives us a good indication of where we might want to prioritize our community facilities, upgrades and things like that. So that is the, I guess, like primary drive in a lot of our kaupapa. And at TRAC, we've sort of operated via 4PO. That is the safety and the visibility of Rainbow residents, the community connections within the set of people, as well as the intersectionality of the social issues that we face. So it could be that someone with various identities might, realistically, they do sort of face compounding challenges when it comes to navigating the world. So looking at our submission, we tried to keep it to some of the topics that we've only managed to discuss as a group, acknowledging that we didn't quite have enough time to cover every single thing being consulted on, but we'll do our best. So with the water reform, as per our previous submission in the initial LTP, we do acknowledge that it's a very challenging time in the city right now. So every time we discuss this with council and with some of the joint advisory hui as well, we get the sense that everyone's kind of in survival mode when it comes to talking about these things, and just as well because obviously everyone needs water to live. But what we're finding is that when it gets to that point, a lot of our issues when it comes to social safety of rainbow people, it sort of gets put in the back burner. And so what we're asking is that whatever councillors decide with how to proceed with their framework, please do consider, I guess, the rising cost of related to needing to pay water rates and how that might affect a lot of the rainbow community who are still like young, gender diverse people who are still renting in the city and things like that, as well as accessibility needs, because some people need more water than the usual resident, I suppose. And so just, I guess, considering those factors. And our next point, we skipped over to the intersectionality aspect. So with the Poneke bike network, we were keen to not reduce the, sorry, I think it was the reduction of funding or the extension of the delivery. We were supportive of option 2 to keep to sort of, I think, to the status quo as much as we could. We just don't want any further reductions of the budget to this plan. So for us, a lot of, I guess, queer people are not drivers. We don't really drive cars, and that's kind of it's been an inside joke in the community for a while. But yeah, so we'll be quite keen to maintain a infrastructure that can that's not quite car centric, and in this case it could be the bicycle lanes or just the improvement of public transport in general. With short-term accommodation rates, we are supportive of the introduction of commercial rates because in our view, if more of the housing stock kind of ends up being taken as Airbnbs or short-term accommodation, that kind of reduces the available stock for first-time owners to actually be able to purchase in the long run. Our next biggest, I suppose, the next point that we feel the most strongly on is the Te Awe Mapara community facilities budget. We do really strongly oppose any reduction of budgets around this because, yeah, like it kind of relates to my earlier point about the water reforms, and that when it comes to that sort of infrastructure, we find that a lot of the community facilities stuff gets put in the gets deprioritized, and that I think is a huge mistake for I guess a society that's kind of moving towards less and less favorable stances to some of our gender diverse residents or members of the community. Yeah, so I guess we'd like to highlight that the qualitative aspects of a city and what makes it livable for rainbow residents shouldn't be forgotten as well. I might skip over the Kori Event Center because I am aware that we didn't quite have much time to cover this explicitly in our hui as a group, and I know it's quite a contentious topic. Is it possible for me to retract the first sentence in our submission?
I don't think it is, but
okay, that's all right.
We can note that. Yeah.
It could just be. I'd just like to highlight that that discussion was mostly driven by me in that group, and we just didn't have time to fully canvass the group, but that's okay. So I can explain that stance a bit more. I think part of the reason why we didn't quite discuss this topic, like it wasn't much of interest in our group, was could be that we just didn't really see our community reflected in the Kori Event Center and what it was kind of proposing as like an auditorium space in Kori. But it could be that we just don't know enough about that project, and which is interesting, yeah, because it kind of tells us that a lot of our members might not really spend much time in that zone, perhaps. In terms of an upgrade, we, as a group, we are very keen on having gender-neutral spaces and facilities in a lot of the community spaces, and I can see that in the Kōrau Event Center, I think it wasn't quite designed that way, and it just sort of shows that it's not really a space for us. But whatever happens with that space, we do highlight that it needs to be still council-owned, that site. Because more public-owned spaces would be important in our suburbs. I might skip the low-cost transport projects because we just didn't really have a perspective on that. We just called for more access for reliable and quicker public transport in the outer suburbs, so that our residents can sort of pop into the city more often and easily. With Begonia House, we did have quite a lot of discussion on this. We were not in support of it being demolished. We do want to keep it as much as we can. We found that having access to sort of a space that housed I guess plants in like a really spatially interesting way, and as a free activity in the city as well, has been really helpful for people who have come to Wellington as students and have begun living here and things like that.
Thank you, Sam. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but
okay, yeah, that's good.
Appreciate your comments.
I've run out of my submission.
It's okay. We do have your submission. Thank you very much.
Cool.
And
thank you.
We'll move to Alistair Stewart, who is online, and thank you for coming back, Alistair. You've reset the clock, so you've got 5 minutes. You're on mute.
Kura, thank you very much for hearing me, and thank you for letting me have the small delay. My submission is as a Kelburn resident, Alistair Stewart and whānau. My submission orally will vary somewhat from what I originally wrote. Time has moved on, and I'm afraid I lost that file. So I would like to begin by adding an additional thought, a favourable one. Now, we pay around $8,000 in rates per year, but in my opinion, this is a bargain. Look at all we get, all the services, etc., for the small amount of money. Taken individually, how much building work or professional services could we buy as individuals for $8,000? Not enough to matter. So I strongly support the council and its work, with some exceptions I'll get to. In my opinion, the emphasis on rates restraint overall is a mistake. Council should move to set rates at the real level needed to keep this city healthy. I think we should and could be paying more, and also support moves to rethink the rating base. However, when deciding on this plan, I'd ask councillors to consider the medical principle, first do no harm. I'd ask if the current council has enough mandate to commit us to long-term decisions and contracts at this time. Particularly, I refer to decisions that are destroying art and beauty and things of cultural significance that have been built up over recent generations. I'm concerned about the continued alienation of public land in various ways. For example, the Chinese garden that would wall off a bit of the harbour, the slower loss of the Kelburn cable car top public area to private use, the sell-off of the Civic Centre for the bland, flat and dreary Tinako project that is proposed. The Begonia House has been well mentioned. The City to Sea Bridge, where I support the Civic Trust's position that Council leapt into a blinkered decision without all of the facts. And the character areas. Loosening control should not mean open slather. It is possible to retain the feel of these communities, if not always the actual buildings, through intelligent design guides. So I'd urge the Council to continue attention on urban design. I'd also ask the Council to withstand the current calls for bigger but lower quality buildings. They are not the solution to the housing shortage. They are the slums of the future. And of course, the last minute work on the Golden Mile. I'd ask the Council to think about the San Francisco example. I was there at the time when their equivalent redevelopment led to an almost total loss of their city shopping. Now, the scary thing about that was how fast it happened. The tipping point happened so fast when foot traffic fell below the critical mass for retail survival, and that was driven by the removal of private traffic and, yes, certainly various other factors as well, but the loss of that critical mass in the city was what did for them. I'd also ask for a certain amount of get real. The glossy renderings of tropical palms and wealthy cafe goers and healthy walkers show no one with mobility issues or over 40. And I'm concerned about the ageism of reduction in bus stops and lengthening walks required as vehicle access is reduced. If you build it, they come, but will they keep on coming through a dreary Wellington winter? Past experience with the Harbour Retail Centre stocks, I won't. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alistair. I don't think we have any questions for you, but we appreciate you coming in.
Great, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Our last two speakers as well are online. One is in the country. So we'll start with Patricia Riley, who is on the screen. You've got 10 minutes. I think you're on mute as well.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Yep.
Thank you. So, tēnā koutou long-term plan finance and committee members, ko Patricia tuku ingoa no Island Bay ahau. Greetings, my name is Patricia Riley, and I have lived in Wellington for since 1976, when my family moved down here from Te Atatu North. In regards to your amendment to the long-term options for reducing your 1.8 billion to 2.6 billion gap in our city's insurance cover, I do not agree with any of the following options 1, 2, or 3. We need to keep our remaining shares in our Wellington Airport and our ground leases. I suggest that the Wellington City Council take back the running of the car parks and parking buildings in our city and stop giving the administration with huge monies gained by Wilson's Parking, and instead let this be a natural income for WCC, not a private company. Stop the wastage created by all the competing companies of contractors who have all their own administration, HR, profit margins, and shareholders to keep happy. Currently, they seem to be running the city on a contract basis rather than city administrators and engineers executing a well-conceived and consulted on, with genuine feedback, actually considered and implementing the plan. Who is in control here? Bring back WCC workers and engineers who know the city and can be used on a non-competing basis where they are utilised productively at all times. People who have a full understanding and a vested interest that goes beyond what a private company trying to cover all costs, administration, and make a profit, plus more for their shareholders. This is not what makes a great city. A great city needs a balance of vision and responsible governance, none of which I have seen lately. I have lived as a young adult in the 1980s and the 1990s. I watched the destruction of assets being sold for not much when compared with the profits made later by the private companies as their sales increase year on year. Look at our banks in New Zealand and look at our electricity companies formed from public assets and sold with short-term profit, with politicians stating that the market and competition will make electricity cheaper, etc. We all know how that has ended, with huge increases in people's monthly power bills. Enough of the failed neoliberal experiment that only profits the wealthy and squeezes the poor and the middle classes. The trickle-down effect is a myth. Do not sell the airport shares or the ground leases. You need to be responsible and realistic with your spending. First, stop the Golden Mile. Save at least 166 million. No doubt it will blow out to more. We do not need it, and we certainly do not want it. It will become another dead zone in the city, and we already have enough of those thanks to the mismanagement and poor town planning. I believe the WCC is being negligent in its responsibilities to us, your ratepayers. We are not a golden goose, but the airport shares are, and so are your ground leases. Use profits from them year after year to feed the city rather than hammering the struggling ratepayers. Already in the last year, my partner and I personally know 2 sets of friends who are retirees who have abandoned Wellington due to the recent antics and policies of the WCC. The huge WCC rates increases, the water leaks due to over 50 years of mismanagement of allocated monies, and the cycleways were the final straws. They realised that they could no longer afford to live here and no longer wanted to be somewhere that had lost its vibe and was run by people interested only in their own privilege and not working for the benefit of the city. Fundamentally, they could no longer afford to live here in their own homes. If WCC rates keep increasing as forecast, I believe half of Wellington's current ratepayers in the next 10 years will probably not be able to stay in their own homes and live in Wellington, even if they're mortgage-free. I am a 60-year-old secondary school teacher and a community business owner. I turned 61 this year. I don't see how I will be able to retire from paid work and survive with the predicted WCC rates amounts and the soon-to-arrive water rates when only living on super and a small KiwiSaver fund. Keep the Kori Event Center. Look after what you have been gifted by the people of your city. These are important buildings that build and nurture community spirit. In the big scheme of things, little community centres needing 1 or 2 million to maintain and operate is nothing, but the benefits to their local communities is huge. This includes local libraries, as well as community housing and outreach to the homeless and the vulnerable. Remember, a society or community is measured by how it looks after its most vulnerable members. Keep and maintain the Begonia House and halt all approved or in pre-implementation cycleway construction. Stop poorly designed cycleways. Instead, put money into Wellington water infrastructure and debt reduction. Start being responsible and actually govern. Leave the city to sea bridge as it is. If there is a 9 on the Richter scale earthquake, there will be a lot more falling than just that bridge. Ensure that essential maintenance is done and managed responsibly for the city. Currently, we seem to be layering up lots and lots of icing at high cost, like the ridiculous cost of the old town hall ongoing and blowing out to even more. And you've actually forgotten about the actual cake, the basics. In regards to Matai Moana Reserve on the Miramar Peninsula, let WCC, the Crown and the Taranaki Whānui operate the area together with their ideas and plans. The Crown needs to assist with the maintenance of the heritage area and give back the land taken during World War II and assist with development plans together with the Taranaki Whānui to make things right. Support the recreation of the Maori village that existed at Fort Balance. Enhance our city, perhaps, with a unique Maori village experience that is real, like Rotorua, where parts of the village are private at all times, but other parts give visitors an authentic experience of communal marae lifestyle in harmony with the land in a modern context, using traditional knowledge and modern materials and technologies where appropriate. Mana whenua needs to be supported by WCC and the Crown. No commercial rates for Airbnb or equivalent. Life is tough enough for your ratepayers. Many of the WCC charges are already very high, especially the building consents. Please maintain our base infrastructure and stop doing fancy, unnecessary works when they are not needed or wanted. For example, the poorly designed cycleways. Thorndon Quay redevelopments with traffic lights galore, but for who? Almost half of Wellington's water is being lost in leaks. I am in favour of option 3, a modified version of the current Wellington water model with new planning, regulatory and accountability frameworks. I do not want our water assets in entity hands. They must remain publicly owned assets that are managed professionally with good informed governance. I do not want corporations owning Wellington water assets, not now, not ever. My final word is please be open and actually listen to the people of your city. We know good housekeeping. We run our households. It is time that you really listen, be responsible, and stop wasting our money on poorly managed disasters run by multiple contractors who appear to be in charge of this circus. It would be nice to see Wellington re-emerge one day as the coolest little capital in the world. Currently, it is anything but that. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. And we'll move on to our last speaker who joins us online as well from, I think, far, far away. But Helen Ritchie, I think you're in Prague. We can hopefully bring you up and...
You okay?
Yeah. You've got 5 minutes and you're free to start whenever you like.
Thank you very much. Kia ora koutou katoa from Prague, early morning. Just by way of quick introduction, my name is Helen Ritchie. I am a former Deputy Mayor and I still remain the longest serving City Councillor. I resigned in 2016. And as you probably are aware, I chair the Civic Trust, and of course you should not demolish the City to Sea Bridge. I am here to talk about the water reform consultation and so on. So you've been told in your consultation document that this is the most important decision we'll make for our city in decades, yet you undermine it and ignore proper democratic process. I have 3 main recommendations and hopefully you have a copy of the paper in front of you. First of all, you should pause the consultation until the local government water services bill is enacted. You have no act at the moment strictly relevant to this consultation. Secondly, it is really important that you reject a company structure under the Companies Act 1993 for water services. It is inappropriate and it is commercially driven. Thirdly, you should reconsider an in-house Wellington City Council water service as a practicable option. It was completely and unfairly excluded from public consultation. And finally, if there is no pause or an in-house option, then, excuse me, I support option 2, which is at least the least harmful, though, of course, it is still not ideal because it is a company structure. My key concerns, very quickly, are these. The consultation is premature, comes before an act. Commercialisation is at serious risk. A company structure prioritises profit, threatens affordability, and could lead to ready privatisation. There's a lack of transparency and accountability. Companies are not subject to public scrutiny. For example, through Lagoima, and decision-making becomes less, and not at all actually, democratic. There is a loss of public ownership. Despite Wellington City Council's claims, forming a company, this is really important, forming a company effectively removes assets from public control. There is a risk of future privatisation. And I talk to you, excuse me, and give you detail about what happened with Thames Water in the UK. This is a cautionary example of increased debt, reduced service quality, and high consumer costs. There is unnecessary costs and complexity. Regional models are bureaucratic, inefficient, and add oversight costs that burden ratepayers. And of course, I've already mentioned that you've excluded viable alternatives. I leave it to you now to read through my very full submission and also the summary for those of you who would prefer to read summaries that I hope has been handed out to you today. And I now welcome some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. We do have your written submission.
Mm-hmm.
And, is there any questions? No, there appears not to be. Oh, wait, no. Councillor Brown has a question.
What's the weather like in Prague? I did hand out your submission, Helene.
Thank you very much, Tom. Yep. Did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, he just wanted to ask what the weather was like. It's always beautiful there.
No, I'm not sure because it's very early. I haven't even looked outside yet, but it looks as if there's sun coming through. Maybe I could just give you the example, if I can. What you're proposing in the regional with your preferred option is, sorry?
I think we've
simply
run out of time, unfortunately. So, but we do wish you well with the rest of your trip. Thank you.
Well, I wish you well to make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. We've still got another 2 hours to go, so we will vote to adjourn the meeting until 9:30 on Monday, the 12th of May. Do I have a seconder?
Can I vote against that?
Well, you can vote against it, but I do have a seconder. We have a good weekend, everybody, and we'll see you on Monday. Why have we not finished? Who's not voted? Is Ben still online? There we are. We're done. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
So obviously sober.